Section 2.3, factoring quadratics. We're going to factor simple trinomials. What's a simple trinomial? Well, if you think about a quadratic, ax squared plus bx plus c, this is what you've studied in the past, in the last grade 10. This is the standard form of a quadratic. A, b, and c are constant values. And in simple trinomials, a is equal to 1, okay? Other quadratics where a is something other than 1 we'll study later on. But for today, we're looking at simple trinomials where a is equal to 1. Okay, so an example, x squared plus 5x plus 6, a is equal to 1. We don't have to write the 1, it's just an invisible 1 in front of that x squared, and that's a simple trinomial. Something that's not a simple trinomial would be this, 3x squared plus 4x plus 6. It doesn't matter the 4x plus 6, but what matters is that a is not equal to 1, it's equal to 3, and that's a complex trinomial, and we're going to be studying complex trinomials later on. So to factor a simple trinomial, okay, we're going to use something called the sum/product rule. Okay, so what's factoring again? So factoring means we need to find factors, two quantities or two brackets that when I multiply them will give me the simple trinomial. Okay, so to find those two factors, I'm going to use something called the sum/product rule. Right, find two numbers whose product is c and whose sum is b. All right, so let's look at some examples. X squared plus 10x plus 24. Now, when b and c are both positive numbers, the two factors we're going to find are both going to be positive as well. Okay, so here the sum is going to be the middle term, b, so b is equal to 10. And the product of those two numbers we're going to look for is going to be the c value, which is 24. So the question you ask yourself is, what two numbers will give me a sum of 10, and those same two numbers are going to multiply to give me 24. Okay, so you start by looking at the product. What are the two possible, what are all the possible factors of 24? Well, I can do 1 times 24. I can do 2 times 12. I can do 3 times 8 to give me 24. And I can do 4 times 6 to give me 24 as well. And I don't have to consider any negative numbers here because we know that both factors have to be positive values. Okay, so out of these pairs of numbers that give me 24, when I multiply them, check which pair of numbers add up to give me 10. So 1 plus 24 does not give me 10. 2 plus 12 does not give me 10. 3 plus 8 does not give me 10. But 4 plus 6 does. So 4 and 6 are the two numbers that add together to give me 10. And so 4 plus 6 equals 10. And 4 times 6 gives me 24. Okay, so once you find the two factors, the way you write out the factored form, so the factored form, we just draw a couple of brackets like this, x, and then an x, and you write your two factors, so plus 4, plus 6. Okay, and then if you expand it using FOIL, you get the original question again. So x squared plus 4x plus 6x plus 24, which simplifies to x squared plus 10x plus 24. Okay, so the question is, why does this work? Okay, so this works because when you find your two factors, so let's write the original question again, x squared plus 10x plus 24. Those two factors that I found allow me to rewrite this as x squared plus, if you break up the 10x into two parts, so 4x and 6x, I can do that because the 4x plus 6x is 10x, and I'll write the 24 again, so plus 24. Okay, and what's happening here is if you paired up terms that are beside each other, like these two and these two, I can find a common factor. So a common factor between x squared and 4x is just x, because there's at least one x in both terms. So I can factor out an x, and I'm left with an x and plus 4. And if I look at the other two terms, 6x and 24, the common factor here between these two terms is a 6. So I can divide out a 6 from each of these terms. So plus 6, divide out that 6. So 6x divided by 6 is x. 24 divided by 6 is 4. Okay. Now, if you look at this and look at this, you ask yourself, what's in common between these two terms? Well, I have an x plus 4 in brackets. So if I factor out, or if I divide out an x plus 4 in brackets, I'll have x plus 4. Okay, and so this first term divided by x plus 4 just gives me the x left over. Okay, and I have, sorry, I should close the bracket there. So x and plus, and if I divide this term by the bracket x plus 4, I'm left with 6. Okay, so x plus 4, x plus 6. That's what I have. So the shortcut really is, well, you just write your two brackets, put x in each one, and then put your 4 and put your 6. Okay. Now, what if b was negative 10? So if b is negative but c is positive, both factors in this case will be negative. Okay. So two negative numbers, when I multiply them, give me a positive 24. When I add two negative numbers, I'll get a negative 10. So what would those two numbers be? Well, it turns out to be just 4 and 6 again, except I'm just going to make them negative. So negative 4 plus negative 6 is negative 10. Negative 4 times negative 6 is positive 24. So my answer here again will just be create your two brackets, x and then minus 4, and then x and minus 6. And if you want to check, expand using FOIL, x times x is x squared. Then we have minus 4x and then minus 6x. So minus 4x minus 6x. So just remember, these are the FOIL rules, right? So minus 4 and then minus 6. And then lastly, minus 4 and minus 6, which is positive 24. Okay. And when you simplify the two middle terms, you have minus 10x and then plus 24. And that's the original question that we got again. So this is my checking steps. Here's the actual answer. And that's what I want, the factored form. And you have two brackets being multiplied. These are two factors that are being multiplied. Okay. Now what happens if both b and c are negative? Well, the larger factor will be negative. The smaller factor will be positive. Okay. So what would the two numbers here? So the sum this time will be negative 2, and the product will be negative 24. So what two numbers multiply to give me negative 24 and add up to negative 2? So with a little bit of trial and error, again, you can write out the factors again. So here, I'm going to have a large factor that will be negative and a small factor that will be positive. So I'm going to write out the positive factors, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the negative factors of negative 24, negative 12, and negative 8, and negative 6. Then you check which ones, now all these pairs of numbers do multiply to give me negative 24, but which pair of numbers will add up to give me negative 2? So 1 plus negative 24 does not give me negative 2. 2 plus negative 12 does not give me negative 2. 3 and negative 8 don't give me negative 2, but 4 and negative 6 give me negative 2. Okay, so my factors here are going to be x plus 4, and the other one will be negative, so x minus 6. Okay, so what I'm saying again, a larger factor will be negative. These are the larger factors. Smaller factor will be positive, so 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. And then what if the sum, or the b is positive but c is negative? Well, it'll be the other way around. The large factor will be positive and the smaller factor will be negative. So I can write out the factors 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm going to make them negative. The smaller ones will be negative, and the bigger ones will be positive this time. So 24, 12, 8, and 6. And which pair will give me a positive 2? Well, if I add negative 4 and 6, I'll get a positive 2. So negative 4 plus 6 equals positive 2. Negative 4 times 6 equals negative 24. Okay, and so b and c are satisfied. I'll write out the factored form, create your two brackets, x and x. One will be minus 4, the other one will be plus 6. And there you go, simple trinomial factoring review in a nutshell. And that ends this video.